So in terms of the veins of the head and the neck, they all come from basically the main veins that supply the upper limb come from the superior vena cava. So the superior vena cava of the heart actually dumps into the right atrium of the heart. So to begin with, the superior vena cava goes into the right atrium of the heart, and into the superior vena cava we get two main veins. These veins are the brachiocephalic veins, the left brachiocephalic vein and the right brachiocephalic vein. Each brachiocephalic vein is itself divided into two major veins. To look for the brachiocephalic vein, you always just look for a Y, shaped like this. So the two veins that combine to form the brachiocephalic vein are the internal jugular vein, which goes upwards and inwards, in for I, upwards and inwards, in for I, and the subclavian vein, which goes towards the shoulder, subclavian towards the shoulder. So the point at which the internal jugular vein combines with the subclavian vein, this actually forms an angle, as you can see here, and this is known as the venous angle. So where the internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein join, this is known as the venous angle, and together these two form the brachiocephalic trunk or the brachiocephalic vein, and the superior vena cava gives off a left brachiocephalic vein and a right brachiocephalic vein. So it's important to know where each of these form. So the internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein join at the sternoclavicular joints. This would be the clavicle, this is the sternum, so this would happen at the sternoclavicular joint. Then underneath that, the brachiocephalic vein goes into forms the superior vena cava, first right rib. So the brachiocephalic vein goes into the superior vena cava at the first right rib. And then the superior vena cava goes into the right atrium of the heart at the level of the third rib. Those are all important to know. Then in terms of the internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein, what's most important for you to know is the internal jugular vein. So most of this video is going to be about the internal jugular vein and a little bit about the other things. Something else to note is that what about the other veins which go into the superior vena cava? It can't just be the brachiocephalic veins, can it? Yeah, there are actually other veins which go into the superior vena cava. The way you remember that is APA is always superior. So for A, you've got anterior mediastinum veins. For P, you've got pericardiac veins. And for A, you've got azygous veins. These three types of veins also drain into the superior vena cava. Azygous vein is the venous system of the thoracic cavity, and azygous veins actually come. In terms of the azygous veins, just to quickly explain, the thoracic veins are divided into the intercostal veins and the azygous veins. The veins that go to the posterior aspect of basically the intercostal veins, these are the intercostal veins. So these intercostal veins, if it's posterior, if it's supplying the back, it's going to be the posterior azygous system. If it's the front, it's going to be the anterior thoracic vein. Now, so in terms of these thoracic veins, the azygous vein actually forms and goes into the superior vena cava. Remember, anterior mediastinum veins, pericardiac veins, and azygous veins. And into the azygous vein goes the hemiazygous vein and the accessory hemiazygous vein. And the hemiazygous vein goes into the azygous vein at the level between the thoracic 6th vertebra and the thoracic 7th vertebra. And in terms of how to remember where the azygous vein comes from or what forms the azygous vein, this is an important question. Remember RAL or LR. So it comes from the right ascending lumbar vein, the azygous vein. Therefore, naturally, the hemiazygous comes from the left ascending lumbar. Now, in terms of the internal jugular vein, here's the internal jugular vein. The internal jugular vein has basically it goes to the neck region and the head region, and it has both intracranial and extracranial branches. So its intracranial branches, the internal jugular vein is actually a direct continuation of the sigmoid sinus and the sinuses of the dura mater. So this means that one of the intracranial parts is the sinuses of the dura mater or the sigmoid sinus. Then the internal jugular vein has a number of intracranial supplies. So the internal jugular vein is a direct continuation of the sigmoid sinus, sinuses of the dura mater. It also has the veins which go to the orbit and the eyeball. These veins are the superior ophthalmic vein and the inferior ophthalmic vein, and these both go through the superior orbital fissure. Superior ophthalmic vein supplies the superior medial portion of the eyeball, and the inferior ophthalmic vein supplies the inferior medial portion of the eyeball. And then it's also the veins of the internal ear and the vestibular part and the organ of Corti. There's two parts here, vestibular part and organ of Corti. The vestibular part actually goes through the superior petrosal sinus, and the organ of Corti goes through the inferior petrosal sinus. Something else to remember is that superior ophthalmic vein and inferior ophthalmic vein both drain into sinus cavernosus, and these anastomose with the angular vein, which is a branch of the facial vein. Finally, there's two more things to remember, is that the internal jugular vein intracranial part is the telencephalon or cerebellar veins, and the way that it connects intracranially with extracranial veins is through the vena diploica and emissary veins. So then finally you also have a number of branches which are extracranial, and the way to remember this is medical schools let confident people in, right? Medical is for middle thyroid vein, schools is for superior thyroid vein, L is for lingual vein, confidence for common facial vein, people is for pharyngeal vein, I is for inferior petrosal sinus, R is for retromandibular vein. And then you also have to remember that there's a superior bulb of the internal jugular vein, which is in the jugular fossa, which is inside the cranium, and there's an inferior bulb which is in the lesser clavicular fossa, which is outside. These are just dilations. And then tributaries of internal jugular vein would be this middle thyroid and all of these. And then the formation of internal jugular vein would be basically what we've just said through here. And then the external jugular vein. So the external jugular vein is actually formed through PAV retropass, so posterior auricular vein as well as retromandibular vein, and it gives off the past branches: posterior external jugular vein, anterior jugular vein, suprascapular vein, and transverse cervical vein.